Hi, I'm Skating PJ, and this is Let's Talk About It, the Skate Ontario podcast, where we're going to get up close and personal with members of our skating family who have a connection to Ontario. So, let's talk about it. Hi, everybody, at Skating PJ here with another fantastic guest for our Skate Ontario podcast. Let's talk about it. I am, of course, referring to Canadian champion, world champion, all around champion, as far as I'm concerned, along with Olympic medalist Meagan Duhamel. Meagan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for asking me to join you, PJ.
And not only that, she's a mom, and that's maybe the position that I hold nearest and dearest to my heart. Not only that, coaching, off ice stuff with elite jump performance. You are one busy girl. That's all I'm going to say.
I feel like I'm like busy here, there, and everywhere. And I saw a meme once on social media that showed like a bunch of puzzle pieces floating around, and it said something like when you try to explain to somebody your schedule. And I felt like that's my life, like I go to the rink some mornings at 6:30 till 8, and then I go back at 10 till 12, and then I go back at 1 till 3, then I go back from 4 till 8. And it's like everything is broken, but then I'm there all day, but then I have to take care of my kids and pick them up from school and daycare. And it's
a lot.
It's every week, every Sunday night when I sit down and look at the week ahead, it stresses me out and overwhelms me.
I bet. I have no doubt. So listen, we're going to go back to the beginning because we've known each other for a very long time. And I, of course, am a huge fan. I love everything that you do. I love everything about you. But one of the things that we talked about was going to the rink with your Barbies and your sister, and talk to me about the very, very beginning with little Meagan.
Yeah, I started skating with my sister so that my mom could have us in the club's local ice show. At the end of the day, that was like the big goal. And my local ice show turned into the Olympics.
Yeah.
But I was the little sister. So, I was a typical little sister. I wanted to do everything my older sister did. So the better she got at skating, the more she advanced, I wanted to do it. And then my sister got to skate like later at night, and my mom would play the music. So then if I was really lucky, my mom would let me sit with her in the music booth and play the music. And then my sister started skating summer schools. We would drive from Sudbury to North Bay, and we would do summer schools in North Bay. And of course, only my sister could do it. I was too young, even though I was only 2 years younger than her. So I would bring my Barbies to the rink, and my Barbies would practice their sit spins and their camel spins and their sow cows while my sister skated. And I would beg my mom, like, why can't I skate? Why can't I do summer skating? And then eventually, a few years later, my Barbie skating turned into my skating, and everything kind of snowballed, but it all started because I wanted to do what my sister did. And my sister competed at nationals in 1999 in novice ladies. And I went to that competition, and I brought my dad to watch every event. And I remember every event from junior dance to junior men to senior pairs, senior ladies. And they had a maple leaf podium, CFSA at that time.
Yeah.
The podium was the shape of a maple leaf. And I left that Canadian Championships in Ottawa in 1999. And I said, I'm going to stand on that maple leaf podium. That was like a big dream. I saw the skaters stand on that maple leaf podium, and that got me like hook, line, and sinker right in.
So, okay, I was a crocus on my first skating show. What were you?
I was a duck.
Oh, duck.
Took everybody down like dominoes. Made a video of it. I was like 3 or 4, and I fell, and then I took the next person down, the next person down, the next person down. And we were just like standing on the spot doing jumps. And I, of course, was trying to jump too high and too fast. And I took everybody out. That was my first ice show.
So when you were, skating aside, going to school, playing with your friends, all the things that were outside the rink, were you equally passionate in those areas as well? Or is the passion reserved for what goes on the ice?
I'm a pretty passionate person in general, but like skating really sucked.
Yeah.
As my passion as possible. It's what I wanted to do. And it was like
sucked you in, you mean?
Yeah. Like I was 6 or 7, and I would tell anybody that would listen that I was going to go to the Olympics. And I remember writing to my pen pal in Finland that I was going to go to the Olympics, and my mom telling me, like, you can't just go and tell people that. And I was like, well, why? I'm going to do it. So I had this innate like dream that I just felt was so alive. And I didn't know the process to get to the Olympics. I didn't know how that worked.
Yeah.
I just knew that was where I wanted to go. And I wrote a book in grade 1 or 2 at school. And I didn't say I wanted to be an Olympic champion. I said I wanted to be an Olympic figure skater like Elvis Stoico. And I had a
Wow.
podium, and he was on the podium. And I had like the boards with all the sponsors. Like I drew Royal Bank and Coca-Cola on the board, all the sponsors on the boards. And, it was like a driving force of my life since I was so young. And I would watch VHS tapes, and my mom and dad would tape everything that was on skating. And as you know, PJ, in the 90s, skating was on every weekend on
Yeah, it
TV.
sure was. Yep.
And then I would rewatch those tapes with my mom, my dad, my grandma, by myself, with my Barbies. And I still know like all the fluff pieces, all the commentary, everything. Like I know it by heart from the 1992, 93, 94, 95 worlds, because I watched those tapes endlessly as I skated in my basement.
So where was the moment? Okay, so our audience is made up of lots of people in Skate Ontario. This is obviously something that is, we're bringing people back to sort of Ontario memories and kind of their earliest times in skating. But I want to know that moment where you knew that. I mean, you obviously knew with the passion of a 5 and 6 and 7-year-old that it was possible. But when did you know, as a competing skater, that it was possible for you to compete, at the level that you dreamt you might? Was there a moment?
Well, like one of the big turning points for me, in 1997, I competed at All Ontario. So
Okay.
back then, you would go to like your local interclub, and then you'd qualify from your local interclub to then it was Northern Ontario. Then you would qualify from Northern Ontario to compete at All Ontario. And this was the non-competitive stream, and that was like how you qualified to compete. And I
Yep.
was in pre-juvenile in 1997, and I got to compete at All Ontario, and like that was so cool to me. And I finished second. And that same weekend, Tara Lipinski won Worlds. And I
Wow.
remember watching in my hotel room Tara Lipinski win Worlds, and it was so inspiring. And then I went and came second at All Ontario, which like in my brain was equal to winning Worlds, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously not the same thing. Uh, and that was like a big turning point for me where I was like, wow, like I'm really going to do it. I can do really well at big competitions. Because being from Northern Ontario, I didn't often, or I didn't ever before that point compete against anybody outside of like my small little region in Sudbury.
Yep.
Um, so I'd only competed against the kids in my town. And all of a sudden now I was the second best in Ontario. And that was like a really big eye opener. I got a uniform. I was like Team Northern Ontario. I got a jacket. And that was really when I was like this, like, I can really do this. I can go places. And the next season I went straight to pre-novice. I competed at divisionals and I came like second last. I came like 11th out of 12. But again, that was such a huge thing. I went all the way to Manitoba and I competed at this big event. And those were big stepping stones for me as a young, 11, 12-year-old skater.
And when you were at divisionals, were you heartbroken by the result? Did you think you were going to win when you were on your way in? I mean, what was the play that was going on inside your head when you went to Manitoba?
Well, definitely didn't think I was going to win. I had only qualified fourth in Northern Ontario. So I got
Okay.
like last spot into divisionals. And I was just happy to be there because that was an event my sister was also competing in. So I was like, she was in novice, I was in pre-novice. But I was just happy to be like involved in an event like that and be part of a team. Again, we had a team jacket. It was really exciting. And I had just come up from pre-juvenile. We had made that decision. Back then there was tomorrow's champions for
Okay.
juvenile. And I remember my coach telling me, if you stay juvenile, maybe you can win sectionals and go to tomorrow's champions. Sectionals was Northern Ontario. Or you can go pre-novice and maybe make it to divisionals. And I chose to go pre-novice because I wanted a short and a long like my sister. And yeah, I did that one year. I had no problem coming second last. And I was like, from then I was on to novice. I went to novice,
Okay.
came second last in novice the next year at divisionals. But it didn't deter me. I was making steps. I was learning my double axel. I was trying a triple sow. And it was all just so exciting.
Well, very exciting, obviously. All right, I'm going to ask you in a minute or so, just to sort of segue into how you became a pair skater, because when I first met you, I think, or when I first was aware of you, it was as a single skater. So, what about being in the pairs discipline attracted you, and when did that start?
Yeah, like a seed was planted when I was pretty young. I was about 11, or maybe by that point I'd already turned 12, but I was very young and I had competed at that divisional event, the one in novice ladies. And Lee Barkel, who was coaching at Mariposa, contacted my coach and asked if I'd be interested in coming to do a pairs tryout. I was 11 or like freshly 12. I had a double axel. I was super tiny, a pretty fearless, spunky energy that
Yep.
I was attracted, Lee to thinking maybe I'd be a good pair skater. So my mom and I went to Barrie and did a pair tryout.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they wanted me to move there at that point to skate pairs, but I just wasn't ready for that jump yet. I was too young. I was really interested, but not enough to move away from home at that point.
Okay.
So the seed had kind of been planted that like maybe pairs would be something that I'd be good at. 2 years later, I did move away to Lee as a coach at Mariposa as a single skater. But by that point, I started being more successful in singles. I made
Yeah.
it to nationals. I went to the North American Challenge competition, came second, got invited to junior Grand Prix. And so things started happening as a single skater. So I kind of like forgot about that idea of pairs for a few years. And I had a lot of success in singles. I
I
won a junior
remember.
Grand Prix. I
Yep.
went to the junior Grand Prix final. I won nationals in junior. I went to 4 continents. I came fourth at senior nationals. But I was always looking ahead. And Joannie Rochette was the champion of Canada at that point. Cynthia Phaneuf was second. And we could always send one or two girls to worlds. And I was so far away from them. And I just wanted to win. And I was like, well, I'm not winning at singles. Maybe I should try pairs and see if
Wow.
that helps me be the champion I want to be. So that was really it. I was honest enough with myself that, I was a single skater with all my triples. I wasn't consistent enough in competition to be successful in singles. And I really wanted to be a champion. So I was like, well, maybe singles isn't for me. Maybe I'm going to try pairs. And that was when I kind of ventured over.
It's interesting. The very first time I ever saw you skate with your former partner, Eric Radford, the thing that was just like blowing everybody away is that the two of you did side by side triple Lutzes. And it was at the Thornhill competition that I saw it. I went, holy smokes, because that to me was a bit of a game changer in the pairs world. Because when you think back to years ago, obviously, like Barbara Underhill and Paul Martini, they won their world title with, I think, side by side double loops or double flips. So, I mean, things have really, really progressed. And of course, that was something that I thought was like an amazing strategy. You have
And
in
it
my
was a
mind,
strategy piece.
yeah, I know.
Exactly what it was. Yeah.
You, in my mind, have always been this amazing strategist. You have looked at, okay, what is the prize I'm aiming for, and what do I need to do to get there? And even when it's been difficult, I don't know if it was your first world title, but it was. You came to me afterwards and you said that I was one of the few people who had believed in you guys the entire season, because I just knew that my money's on you all the time, because what you need to do in order to get to wherever it is that you're going. Talk to me a little bit about that. What are the roots of that?
Yeah. When I started skating with Eric and we had the plan that we were singles skaters, we were singles champions, we could include the triple Lutz. I had been competing for 3 years with Craig Bunton and only doing a triple toe and a double axel. So I
Yep.
haven't even really been practicing my triple Lutz that much. So it took us, Eric and I, a long time to get that triple Lutz consistent in competition because we just didn't have the mileage on it for years. Eric wasn't practicing it either with his old partners. So it was a strategy that we took. And for 2 years, almost 2 years, we missed that triple Lutz at every competition. And there was quite a few people, officials with Skate Canada, David Dorr with the ISU,
Yep.
coming telling our coaches, why are they doing that? They could just land a triple sow. Why are they doing that triple Lutz? And I remember Bruno telling me specifically that he told David Dorr that triple Lutz will make them world champions one day. That's why they're doing it. And it was a long-term plan. We had a messy 2 years and we accepted that so that we could gain in the long term. And we had the triple Lutz in our program and we started landing it pretty much in the 2012, 2013 season consistently after 2 years of missing it quite a lot. But we kept at it. We believed that one day that would be what separated us, especially in a short program when
Yep.
everybody's doing the same thing. So we were really strategic with that. We were really strategic with a lot of things. So a lot of people see us because we did the triple Lutz. We eventually did the quad sow. A lot of people see that as what made us champions. And it was a big part of what made us champions. But we were also super strategic with our levels. with designing our programs. Back many years ago, pairs got a bonus for doing lifts, jumps, and throws in the second half. So we would do our 3-jump combo in the second half, where no other pair in the world was doing this. So we were getting 10% more for elements late in the program. One year we did 2 throws, 1 jump, and all 3 lifts in the second half of our free skate to get the bonus.
Yeah.
We even choreographed a triplets halfway through our short program because singles would get a bonus for jumping halfway through their short. Only when the season started for us to learn that pairs aren't getting that bonus, but it was already choreographed, so we just left it there anyways, kind of for shits and giggles. But we were really like strategic with all those things, with things, getting consistent level 4s all the time. And that was really helpful to us with death spirals and spins and all that kind of stuff. And that gained us a lot more points than a triplets at the end of the day.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I would say your body of work is
Yeah.
really what brought home a lot of those medals, because there wasn't a day, like even practices. I remember watching, at competitions, pick a competition, and on the practice sessions, the official practice sessions, you guys were really going hell bent for leather. You were making sure that you took advantage of that practice session to put the programs to structure the practice in such a way as to support you in competition.
Yeah,
What
and we were very strategic with that. And our second world title in Boston, we always say we won it that first day of practice.
Yeah.
Because we had a good season, but not a great season. And we showed up in Boston and we just had these spectacular practices. And then all of a sudden, everybody started coming to watch our practice. The Russian coaches, the Russian officials, different skaters, all these people. And that's when you really know, like, that you're doing really well. And that's when it started in Boston, that first day of practice, doing all the right things, picking and choosing what we did with the music and making sure we delivered what we did with the music on every single practice. It was really important to us. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do well in competition practices.
Are you a musical person innately?
No, not at all.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I'm musical or artistic innately whatsoever.
So did you have to, like, Julie Marcotte was your choreographer for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Entirely, or did you use anybody else at different times?
At the end, we used John Kerr for our
Yeah.
short program for the Pyeongchang Olympics.
Okay. Did you have a way of finding the beat, finding the musical highlights, finding the musical punctuation, as I call it? How did you address that if it's not in your bones?
Well, once you listen to music, one piece of music so much, it does innately become a part of you, right? Even music that I didn't think I would like, it grows on you and you understand that. But part of the strategy with choreographing programs is also utilizing all those musical highlights. And we worked with Hugo Chouinard and his team.
He's amazing.
Yeah, and another Hugo that composed music.
Yep.
So even with our Adele Hometown Glory, right before Boston Worlds, we re-edited the music to add more nuances. We re-orchestrated the whole second half of music with this guy Hugo and his orchestration and his team. And it really changed the energy of the program when we did that. So, my partner Eric he's a musician. So obviously it was something natural to him. But also this was part of our strategy to always have everything built on the musical highlights and make sure that was a big part of our performance. And that also allows the audience to be drawn into your performance, and the judges are part of the audience.
Sure they are. Sure they are. Do you find that you prefer, because now, of course, you're at the boards, behind the boards, and that's, you're the director. Please give me your title for Elite Jump Performance, what you're doing for them, because that's a lot of off-ice training and you're working for them.
I'm the managing director for
There you go.
Performance, and I'm also the off-ice director for Skate Oakville, and I manage all their off-ice program as well.
So you are somebody who is, I remember the beginning of the pandemic, and I remember you doing all of these online off-ice classes to try and help skaters with their fitness. So that obviously has been very, very important to you. And you are maybe the strongest human I've ever met. I mean, you are a tiny little package, but honestly, you are fit. So
Mhm.
talk to me about the importance of off ice because I don't know anybody who has been as devoted to that as you.
Yeah, I don't think that there's been very many, at least in figure skating, but
Yep.
it was really important to me, especially after I stopped skating with Craig in 2010 when we didn't make the Olympic team. At that point, I had a stress fracture and a bulging disc, two stress fractures and a bulging disc in my lower back and a numb leg. I competed at nationals in 2010 to qualify for the Olympics on a leg that I couldn't feel.
Are you
Um,
kidding?
yeah, I was really injured, and after that, I was starting my journey with Eric, and I failed to make two Olympic teams, and I didn't want that to happen again. And I had to look at my skating as a whole in a really holistic way, and what could I do to better myself to make sure that that never happened to me again. I never wanted to be in a position where I failed to qualify for an event because my body failed me.
Okay.
Um, so I really started dedicating myself to off ice, starting with regular Pilates and yoga training, studying nutrition at that point, and then working with some amazing mentors and trainers in Montreal in my journey in Montreal. And what happened a lot for me in my figure skating journey with the trainers I worked with was they've never worked with figure skaters before. And that's what happens. Like, that these were the trainers at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal to work with the national team athletes, where they came from a different sport. They didn't know figure skating. So I would educate them on what figure skaters needed. And then together we would build a training plan. So I was really part of my training program with all my trainers in Montreal. And I learned a lot from these really great mentors that I had. And during the pandemic, a lot of clubs and coaches and skaters were looking for what we could do at home. And it
Right.
was just so natural for me that, yeah, there's a million things you can do for off ice training. And I really found my niche. And I'm really thankful for that period of time that I was able to do that and work with some amazing clubs all over the world, amazing skaters, and really find my passion for teaching off ice to all skaters. I do off ice classes at Skate Oakville, and I also create off ice training classes for kids coming out of can skate all the way to the world champions, to Riku and Ryuchi, which is just, it's really amazing.
And are there similarities between what you're doing for the little guys and what you're doing for the world champions? Like, is there, everybody's got to work on leg strength, everybody's got to work on core strength. Are there any parallels across those levels?
It's all the same body parts. It gets more advanced, right? Like
Yeah,
as
of
you
course.
go. And with Skate Oakville, I hire in different coaches to supplement the work I do. So I do a lot of like sport specific strength and cardio training, and with the little kids, a lot of jumps. And then I bring in dance teachers. I bring in a skipping coach. I bring in Pilates and eccentrics coach. So the 8-year-olds are doing like intro to Pilates and really basic Pilates, whereas like the world champions are going to a Pilates studio and working on the reformers. So it's just a more advanced work as the skater gets older.
I remember when you became vegetarian, and how difficult it was to go to competitions. I remember having a conversation with David Baden one day in, I don't know where we were, but he was trying to find something for you to be able to eat. So, talk to me about your journey in nutrition, because I know that this is another aspect that has been super important to you.
Yeah, I became vegan in 2008. I was going to say
Vegan is what I meant to say.
2008, where like 2008 doesn't feel that long ago, but in terms of like the plant-based lifestyle and plant-based options, 2008 was like a lifetime ago, because
Yeah,
right now it's so readily available everywhere.
yep.
I can go
Wasn't
to
then.
a big steakhouse and they have a vegan menu.
Yep,
Um, but yeah, back in like 2008, 2009, 2010, it was really difficult. And then you're going to competitions that the ISU caters your meals.
yep.
Um, and not only were they not catered to vegan or vegetarian, they were not athlete friendly at all. Like there was no healthy whole grains and not a lot of vegetables. Um, it was not very nutritious food all around. And yeah, I struggled there for a long time. Over the years, I ended up finding my rhythm. I studied nutrition, and then I found ways that I could find really great restaurants and grocery stores everywhere I traveled. So it became part of like my trip. I would like arrive in Osaka, Japan, and I would go online and I'd find all the vegan, vegetarian options, and I'd pick one to go to every day, and or a grocery store. And it was part of my sightseeing as well when I was at events.
Tell me about lots of greens.
Yeah, I started Lots of Greens, which is it was my husband's idea. Lots of Greens, like my play on words. Let's the skating jump that made us world champions, and then greens having to do with vegan. And I did start that website to kind of share and inspire and motivate athletes to eat more plant-based and to share healthy recipes to fuel athletes and encourage them to eat a lot and eat well. I still share a lot of recipes on my Let's of Greens Instagram page. I wish I had time for more. I do have this vision and I really want to do it, but life is so crazy right now. But I want to create snack boxes for athletes where
Oh,
every week athletes can order snack boxes with me, energy balls, muffins, cookies, like healthy cookies, chickpea peanut butter cookies, granola, homemade granola bars, homemade smoothies, all this stuff where I like make a little box for them and they can pick it up and it's like weekly training snacks. And this
that,
has like been something I've wanted to do for a really long time, but it takes a lot of time. And I have 2 young kids and I work a lot of hours and
yes.
I just haven't had the time to do it yet, but it is there on my to-do list right at the top, and a project that I'm hoping to start soon.
I'm sure that you will get there. If anybody's going to get there, you are, I have to say. So let's talk for a minute sort of at the boards or on the rink. Which role do you prefer?
I like to just kind of be behind the scenes helping out skaters right now and, being like any sort of help that I can be. And that's going, from 4 or 5 year old beginners all the way to the top end world champions or world silver medalists now, Riku and Ryuichi. I like to help everybody where it's needed and kind of manage people's schedules and stuff, but I don't need to be like right in the limelight as a coach or as a skater anymore. I'm happy to be in the background. I had that time already as for myself as a skater, and it's somebody else's time, and I don't need to kind of be there as a coach either. I like to just help when I'm needed and where I'm needed.
As somebody who was a pair skater, are you ever involved with little baby pairs as they're getting started?
I work collaborating with a club in Nova Scotia with the Dartmouth Skating Club, and she started quite a few juvenile and pre-novice teams, and I go there every few months to help introduce pair skating to these skaters and start them learning very basic pair elements. But in terms of like coaching on a full-time basis, like young pair teams, we don't really have any young pair teams in Oakville, like underneath the novice level. For various reasons, but one of the things I always try to advocate to skaters before they start full-time pair skating is that they need to learn to skate by themselves.
Okay.
In order to be a great pair skater, you have to be a great individual skater.
Yep.
So if you want to learn pairs at a young age, it's not a problem, but you cannot, that needs to be secondary to your individual skating. The individual skating and training needs to be the most important at that developmental stage, because if you don't do that, at some point your pair's career will stop. It'll halt because you won't have developed those individual skills that you need.
I love you as a commentator. I learn so much whenever I'm listening to you do commentary. Can you tell me your inspiration for commentary?
All those VHS tapes in the 90s. Like all your streams, how many times, PJ, I've mentioned to the producers at CBC Sports, like, if you want to stream all the events again, I'm happy to do all the commentary like PJ used to.
It was fun.
Now CBC, they always take the world feed from the ISU, so it's not a Canadian commentator, which is fine. But I'm always offering my services like you used to do. Oh my gosh, PJ, the number of times like I was up all night long watching you do the qualifying rounds at a world championship. Every single skater, I watched all of it. I would watch all of it all night long. I'd wake up and watch from Japan, 45 ladies short programs or qualifying along with you. So that was my inspiration and my passion for skating, and just wanting to share my passion with Canada and with the world.
So, what messages are you trying to get across when you are, because you have to be concise when you're either, and I know that you have an interest in writing, and I'm so excited that that's going to be a possibility, fingers crossed, because you've got so many great stories to explore. But what is the message when you're watching a performance, when you're watching somebody skate, for good, bad, or indifferent? What are you thinking about in terms of the information that you'd like to get across?
2 things. Trying to make it informative for the viewer, because there's a lot of hardcore skating fans that understand the rules and understand all these things, but then you have the general fans that are flipping through the channel or maybe watching once a year. They're watching skating, or twice a year. So you're trying to educate and be informative, but you're also trying to inspire the next generation at the same time. And the number of times I get emails from coaches and skaters or support team, saying like, oh, we loved, like coaches saying, I loved watching, and my skaters love to listen to what you have to say after every performance. So you're trying to be informative. You have to be honest, which sometimes involves constructive criticism, but you're also trying to be inspiring and encouraging to, the future, the little 7-year-olds watching, and also to the skaters who are going to look back and find those videos online.
So I want to have, this is my last question, I promise, because I know you got to go, but I want to know, first of all, your very favorite competitive performance, whether you won a medal or not, doesn't really matter, or your very favorite competition for whatever reason. And then I want you to pick out from the playlist in your mind 2 favorite performances of anybody's across time. And I know you've got lots of favorites, but just, I'm curious to know what lives there in your mind.
Oh, I have 2 favorite performances of mine that are so hard to choose.
Go. No, you can give me both.
2012 in Moncton, when we won our first national title, because it was a moment that I'd pretty much given up hope would happen. The ball of fire in my stomach, believing I could be a national champion, was like burning so small. And we really seized the moment with a great performance. And it was really a life-changing moment for me to be a national champion for the first time. And my next favorite performance is our free skate at the World Championships in Boston in 2016. Because I felt like we were written off a little bit that season, even though we were the reigning world champions. There was new teams. Aliona and Bruno had come, were just competing for the first time. Shui and Han had kind of reinvented themselves. And the Olympic champions, Tatjana and Max, had come back from the Olympics in Sochi. So we were kind of forgotten about, and we felt that. And we really hunkered down and focused on ourselves. And I've never been more proud at the end of a performance as I was at the end of that performance. Just a feeling of redemption and all the work that we did it. And I'll never forget being in our last lift, in a star lift, in a carry lift. And I was over Eric's head, and I could see Richard and Bruno at the boards underneath me jumping up and down. And I just screamed at them, yay, from the top of the lift. And it's my favorite moment in skating. It was my favorite, purest, most organic moment in the sport. And my favorite performances as a viewer, number 1 is the 2003 World Championships, Zhui Shen and Hong Bo Zhao.
Yep.
So many of their performances, but 2003, the World Championships, I believe, were in Washington that year. Just an epic performance. I used to watch it on YouTube every single night for years. I loved it. And my other favorite is Tara Lipinski when she won in 1997. That was such an inspiring moment for me. And that was when I really knew that I wanted an Olympic moment like that.
Well, and you sure got one, I'll tell you. And I remember those Boston World Championships too. That was just really something, because guess what? I called it. I said you were going to win. Ha!
I always got those too.
No way.
And you always predicted that we would do so well, and it just gave me that little bit of confidence. I was like, well, at least PJ believes in us.
I did, but I didn't believe in it because I think you're fantastic, which I do as a human. I just could see it. So you know what? It's nice when I'm right, because it doesn't always happen. That's for sure. Listen, Meagan Duhamel, if there's one lesson that you could leave our younger viewers with from our Skate Ontario family, what would you say to them?
It's so cliche, but to enjoy the journey of skating, because when you get to the end, when you get to the end of the road, and for me, that end was being on the Olympic podium. When I made it to my final destination and I stood on that Olympic podium, all I thought about was the journey. That was everything that I was thinking about, was the journey. And imagine if the journey had been awful. That would have been a terrible moment on the Olympic podium. I'm so thankful that I was surrounded by great people and great support staff. And I had some amazing journeys. And even when things were tough, they were still fun. And I always made those tough days fun and training. And my journey was amazing. And I'm so thankful for that, because at the end of the day, that's all you're left with.
Well, you know what? So listen out there, young audience, enjoy the journey. That's what Meagan says, and that's what I say too. Meagan Duhamel, thank you so much for joining me. You are fantastic, and continued success, and I'm sure I'll see you around the rink sometime.
Thanks, PJ.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Let's Talk About It, the Skate Ontario podcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media. I'm at Skating PJ. Until next time, bye for now.